So let's talk about alignment for a second. And I have to warn you, I'm going to have a little rant here because we seem to think that alignment is this perfect geometrical positioning of the body where everyone should look the same to achieve the perfect asana. And this is complete nonsense. This cannot happen because everyone has a different body. So how did we reach that point of putting everyone the exact same way, regardless of their body shape or their level of fitness or their health condition? We need to dive into the history of yoga and the progression over the last few decades. So yoga used to be transmitted mostly orally by students following their guru over a lifetime. And they would go through various practices, including the practices of physical asanas, preparation of the body, which simply aimed at preparing to be fit for meditation, to be able to sit quiet and still for hours to reach that connection with the divine, which truly is what yoga is, right? Now, over the last few decades, so around the mid 20th century, yoga literally exploded in the West. And the huge popularity of yoga forced us to review the way we would train yogis and yoga teachers. And what better way to mass expand than to standardize everything, right? You cannot have people following gurus for a lifetime if you need to train them in mass. So the asana practice became, first of all, central because that's a style that was fitting the West and was standardized so that we could train many people at the same time. And that's how, when we look at how alignment is perceived today, well, the way that we tell you to place your foot at 45 degrees or 90 degrees is something actually really recent. And that always makes me laugh when some of my students come to me and say, well, you don't have a very traditional way of teaching because I threw these angles and these distances out of my vocabulary because I refuse to put everyone in the same mold when they don't have the same body. So I think that teaching a more functional approach to yoga, where forget about these angles, forget about the placement and the distance, just find the angle that fits for you, right? I cannot force you to place your foot at 45 degrees if for you 30 degrees is what works. And if I have 10, 20 students in my class, I need to be effective in the way that they place their body in a manner that is safe for them. And throwing these angles, throwing these distances of how to place your foot, for example, in a warrior one. So in a warrior one, we often hear place your foot at 45 degrees. Well, first of all, most people don't even know what 45 degrees look like, right? Because we don't deal with angles on a regular basis. So you'll end up with feet all over the places because people may have a different perception of what is 45 degrees. And then second, as I mentioned, this 45 degrees might not work for everyone. I know, for example, for myself, my hip socket on the right side is not the same as on the left side. So on the right side, I need to place my foot a little more to the side and the toes really pointing forward because I cannot have this external rotation without affecting my lower back. And if I do, it's going to bring a torsion in my knee. So I get a little bit anatomical here because I love anatomy, but this respect of the body completely went out of the window with these aesthetic alignments. And so much that to a certain point, it seems like people are convinced that to do yoga, you have to look the posture. You don't have to look anything to do yoga. You just need to be present in your body. And when you become present in your body has this instinctive way of positioning itself in a way that is safe. So I like to trust my students and just tell them, have your toes pointing more or less towards the front, and they find their own comfortable way of positioning their body because that's not what matters. What matters is what are we bringing into the posture? What benefit? What is the grounding? What is the elongation? What is the mindfulness and the presence and the breath that we bring into our practice? So thankfully, very recently with the incredible rise of injuries in yoga because of that aesthetic perception of asanas, That led a number of teachers to get away from these aesthetic cues and focusing more on functional alignment. What is functional alignment? It's acknowledging that everyone has a different skeleton, a different muscle flexibility. People will go through life and have accidents, injuries, scar tissues, will have different joint shapes, so we cannot expect them to be able to look exactly the same in the posture. So functional alignment is to look at the function of the posture rather than how it looks. And as long as you get the benefit of the posture, you're doing it. To give you an example, right? We have at the tip of the shoulder, if you touch the tip of your shoulder, you have what is called the acromion process, which is the end of your shoulder blade. And this forms a little pad, and we have the arm bone, the humerus, fitting under, right? So this acromion process in certain people will be very angled, which gives them a lot of movement, and they can raise their arms all the way up without any issues. Some people will have more of a flat acromion. And when they raise their arm, it's going to bring their shoulder blade to press, and then they'll open the chest and compress the back. They will never be able to keep their back straight and raise the arms all the way up. Their skeleton is not made like that. So are they going to sacrifice their back and open and disengage the abdominals just for the sake of having the arms all the way up by the ears? Or should they keep their core center and find the grounding through the root chakra by keeping the spine stacked, but maybe keep the arms forward a little bit, right? So the aesthetic approach to yoga would tell us, well, screw the core, let's bring the arms by the ears, right? My approach to yoga is, well, the arms by the ears is not the goal of the posture. The goal of the posture is that alignment, that compactness, that togetherness. So keep your arms forward. I hope this example makes sense. And that's just a simple one for the arms that would apply in, for example, your warrior one or your extended arm pose. But this applies to every single posture. Our skeletons are so varied that we need to understand the anatomy of the body in order to be able to practice yoga safely. That's why I have such an emphasis in anatomy in Norza's yoga teacher training. And I'm so proud that our students actually understand how the body works and then are able to offer modification for all body types, for all injuries, and then work with physiotherapists, work with chronic condition, work with special population that have special needs for yoga, and bring yoga to be accessible to all. Because yoga should be accessible to all, because it's not about looking fancy on a picture on Instagram. It's about how it brings us to the present moment. So that was my little rant on alignment. And going back to being accused of not teaching traditional yoga, if we look at a tradition of 50, 60 years old that tells us that the body has to look exactly the same for everyone, yeah, that's true. That's not what I'm teaching. However, if you look at traditional yoga of 5,000 years of connecting with ourselves and connecting with the divine, that's what I want to transmit to my students. The body is just a tool, and forcing the body into positions that are not physiologically adapted to your own skeleton is simply bringing pain and distracting the mind, and this is not yoga, right? So thank you for listening to this video. I wish you a fabulous 50th season, and hope that in 2021 you can bring with you that aspect of what is the goal of the posture that I'm practicing, not what it should look like. Sending you lots of love. Mwah.